Yeah, closest one here. Next up, we've got Sam Kraehenbuehl, who he's half Swiss, he's half Greek, he lives in Greece. He's the commercial director of TeleWhale, one of our newest members. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Sam. Thank you. So we'll take a seat. We've got Desh from Comviva. He's the CEO of messaging for Comviva. Great to see you again. Thank you. And we have John Ryan is the CEO for Europe and Americas with Root Mobile. Nice to have you, John. Good to see you again. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Seat now. Have a seat at the far end. So we are here to talk about digital marketing. The title here: Communication Trends and the Evolution of Customer Behaviour. Right. Let's get straight into this. Kerstin, I know you were at a MEF's event, RCS World, which was held in conjunction with Google, I know, and you showcased, I think it was with Unilever. So I know many of you here deal with very, very big brands, which is great. I touched on the point talking to Julian that where he mentioned SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses, enterprises, charities, organizations like that. So messaging is playing such a huge role now within marketing. How do we make it relevant and actually accessible and touchable and usable by smaller and medium-sized businesses? How do we go about doing that?
Very good point, James. So we've been busy focusing on the big brands now and making our game, for example, well known to them. Your Unilever, your Netflix, your Coca-Cola. And you're right, it's now time to make sure that we enable those 300 million small businesses across the world that are all into finding new tools, extremely easy to use and affordable tools to secure their growth. And I think that's the next wave now that we need to, first of all, the whole industry needed awareness with the big brands, and that job is not finished by no means. But in parallel, we need to start making tools available for the small businesses. For example, we at Out There Media are in fact rolling out an SME tool for the micro and medium-sized business, where with 3 simple steps, they can fill up their shops or stimulate their e-commerce via our platform. That's one of the ways to respond to that.
Fantastic, thank you. Sam, next up. So we started off the day today with Yulia Darkin from Meta WhatsApp. And if we look at Meta's revenues, basically 98% of their revenue to date this year has come from ads, Facebook ads. But the click-through rate from many pure digital ads, including Facebook, is well known to be less than 1%. It's about 0.9. And when you step into the world of retail, that probably increases to 1.6. And you step through the door of SMS, we all talk about this, you can increase that by a factor of 1,000%. And then everyone agrees that whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's rich business messaging, you step into the world of rich messaging, you double that yet further. So it's a massive increase.
True,
Again,
true.
leading on for that with digital ads. How important to the whole digital marketing space is messaging, or will messaging become, given those statistics? Because it's all good and well for SMB spend so much money in the digital space with the likes of Facebook, Instagram, increasingly TikTok as well, and so many other channels. They all have their place, absolutely all have their place. But at the end of the day, like Julian was saying, like Yulia was saying, it's about the outcomes for the business, the click-through rate, what someone actually does and goes on to buy. So where is messaging going?
Okay, let me start by quoting Peter Drucker, okay? He said something very smart and very important, that was to listen or to hear what has not been said. Very important quote. We as an industry, as a team, as a trade association, basically, we are all trying to provide the best solutions, the best multi-channel, the best omni-channel. We call it CPaaS, we call it enterprise solutions, we call it wholesales, we call it voice, we call it everything, IoT and all that. But at the end of the day, it's a communication between a company and an end user. We are the end users, you, me, everybody else. And sometimes I have the feeling that our trade is forgetting about that we also the users. I mean, we all come with something fancy, fantastic solutions, great channels, we'll do it this, rich RCS, RBM, and things like that. Okay, fantastic. But the principle of marketing was one word. It was the KISS. It's keep it simple, and sorry for the language, but stupid. The KISS. It's simple. The people want to be approached. The people want to be communicated to as smart persons. And sometimes, as I see in this kind of events, we're forgetting something very important. That, yeah, we're all here to sell and all do our business and provide our services. But where are actually our customers? Where are, for example, Coca-Cola, British Airways, maybe Selfridge? We should involve those people, because those are the people who should be giving us the guidelines to where they want to go, and also including us as persons, as the users, to receive this kind of communication. It can be SMS, it can be email, it can be WhatsApp, Viber. Yeah, fantastic. This is the idea of the omnichannel. The dream of every digital marketeer is to reach anyone, anywhere. But you have to have the other side of the chain, of the growth chain, in front of you, working together with you, so you could achieve this best journey together.
So it's the simplicity. You talked about simplicity, keeping it simple.
Exactly.
But messaging. So messaging is good for that?
Yeah, I do believe so. SMS, for me, personally, as our company TeleWhale, that we provide, okay, obviously, SMS wholesale, digital and IT services. Okay, obviously, SMS has many, many, many years of growth in front of us. Everybody's trying to say, no, it's going to be changed, it's going to be cancelled because someone is coming with a new idea. But still, SMS remains the best mean of communication to the people. Simple, fast. That's by the hands of the KISS principle.
Desh, moving on to yourself, you're from India, obviously Comviva, global company, very, very heavy in the Middle East and Asia, increasingly Africa and elsewhere as well. But that's your business. But yourself, let's talk about the changing consumer, customers, us individuals. We're very, I'm trying to think of a simpler word in English, but we're very fickle. We can change on a dime. What was very fashionable today, suddenly, literally, overnight, through no fault of a brand or a chat app or whatever it might be, can suddenly fall out of favor. What has changed with the consumer, do you think, in the past couple of years? And where do you see the consumer being next year, in the next couple of years? And it's a very general question, I know, very well, but it's really your personal perspective.
I think the consumer behavior has significantly changed drastically in the last 2 years, because a lot of people are forced to transact online versus offline. And I think that has evolved how we interact with the businesses and the expectation from the business in terms of the experience across different channels, whether it is web, app, messaging. So, that has changed. But maybe I'll give an explanation of what an SMB is looking at. So when I interact with a lot of SMBs, the business model is that, use Shopify, start a brand, a web store, app store. And then for digital marketing, you're looking at, Instagram page and a Facebook. When you talk about business messaging, that's the last thing that they would think about, because they have a very, very clear automated model end to end, right? And that is where the consumer is, and that is where the brand SMB wants to invest in. And only when through education and giving them the options, you see that they are happy to use that channel and they see the ROI. So the point is, the consumers are happy to engage, but the brands, the SMBs, they don't see the value in interacting, and the education of using the messaging, business messaging channel is not there.
Doesn't it go back to the question, because we're so comfortable with the likes of SMS? The question came earlier. It came from Jamie from Bix as well, and in the first discussion with Yulia, is how do we get people who are using the free WhatsApp? And I went to India for the first time in Mumbai in April, and every single taxi driver, every single small business was using WhatsApp, but the non-business version of it was the free version of WhatsApp. So they're using it every day. How do we get it out there, though, that it's free at the moment, but there's a real value actually from it, and moving them up to the business version, which will hopefully have extra functionality, et cetera, beyond that? How do we go about doing that?
Well, one of the things is how easy it is today to use a Facebook ad. I don't think WhatsApp is so easy. I mean, when you Google, I mean, when you have to onboard into different platforms, it's not as easy as compared to the awareness, the number of people who are available, who can, consultants, marketing agencies who are available to onboard you on a Facebook or a Instagram ads. You don't have that kind of expertise available on these other channels, business messaging channels.
Thank you. And John, bringing to the conversation. Hi, very warm welcome. Last saw you at Mobile World Congress, so a good few months ago. Seems like yesterday though. So your business originally from India, but your job title kind of gives the game away. So CEO of Europe and the Americas, you're very much expanding globally too. What's your take on extending on from what Desh said about the consumer? How have you seen the consumer change in the past couple of years with all the fun and joy that the reactions to COVID, should I say, have brought, and what behaviours that might have changed will stay moving into the future and what won't?
I probably have to agree with most things I've heard in the last 2 days. However, I think we're so centralised as an industry, we're trying to shift technology onto the consumers. And I go back to Desh's point is, messaging is mainstream today. Our consumers will dictate how they want to use it, when they want to use it, and their platform of choice. So I'd probably go back to what does omnichannel mean? It was defined to bring online businesses with bricks and mortar. Because as a customer, I honestly don't care what platform. I care about the platform that's easy for me, that is useful for me, and respects my personalization, my privacy, where I am. And I think, to Desh's point, I think consumers in places like India and say LATAM are probably more innovative than we are in Western Europe or the US with the technology, because it's need is the mother of invention, or necessity is and I think they are more innovative. So to talk about your SMB, we see a lot more traction in India and say Colombia than we do in Europe. So our strategy is very clear. We bought a company in Latin America last year, and that's where we're going to do our omnichannel from, because they have the elements that they have an enterprise customer, which is strong retail. They do want omnichannel, but it's not omnichannel as we're defining it. Their omnichannel is just make it channel agnostic. And I'm going to choose the channel, not you. So I think that's where we look at, we launched something in Colombia 2 weeks ago called Ocean, which is our omnichannel enterprise automation network. And it is about, go back to, I think, James's point, as a customer, as a supplier, you have data about me. When I engage with you, I want you to have a complete picture of my relationship with that brand, not just this one transaction. So you've got to have access to lots of databases. You've got to do some analysis of it. When you're talking about the internet, you're talking about millions of transactions. And it's having that automation of saying, right, this information I'm going to present to you is personalized, it's relevant, there's some value add to it, and it's probably on the platform of your choice at the time of your choice. That is really complicated. So for me, messaging is absolutely mainstream, but it's part of an ecosystem. It's not the answer to everything. And we've got to become a lot more supportive and look and give insight to brands of this is the channel, this is how they want to use it, this is what works, this is what doesn't, and become a lot more disposable in how we communicate with our customers.
Thanks, John. Kerstin, you mentioned you're bringing out a solution for the SMB sector, which is great, but dealing with them very, very different in terms of education, their knowledge, their technical knowledge in particular, connecting up to an API. How do I do that? What is an API, et cetera, How did you approach that change in your business? So being able to provide
it's not a change, it's an addition. So you're absolutely right. We are, as most of the people in the room know, we are very much focused on the big brands and the agencies, and we have that set up and have been doing that for the last 10 years very successfully across the globe, and that's what we're set up. And it's a completely different animal to speak to the hundreds of millions of SMBs. So what we are doing is we are using the sales force of our carrier partners to go out to the SMBs and educate them. So I'm giving away a big part of our strategy. So basically, as most of you know, we are deeply ingrained being the digital advertising technology partner of choice for big telcos in the world. Now we're very focused on rich messaging and educating the big brands to use it, and extremely successfully so. So since Dublin, there's been a huge leap already with more of Unilever's coming and more of Netflix is coming on board. Now what we're doing is we are working with our carrier partners who have a sales force of people who go out and sell to the SMBs and educate them with other products and say, oh, by the way, why don't you use this super tool here with which you can fill up your shop in 7 minutes? There's a very famous case on the internet for Paul Bakery, how we showcased that in Czech Republic, for example, with real-time location-based marketing, considering Paul Bakery an SMB, now a coffee shop on the corner. So that's it. We're utilizing the sales force of the telco.
So to sell donuts, get more bang for your buck, literally. yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. So that's it. We're not in the business to build up, hordes of sales force that go out and speak to all the SMBs until that education job has been done and everything becomes automated and people are just jumping on it themselves. But as we all know, that is far away still, that those SMBs will just figure it out themselves.
So it leads me in perfectly. Sam, you spent a lot of time dealing with mobile operators in your career. And mobile operators are there primarily to service our needs, so person-to-person communication.
It's a question of experience at the end. It's experience. It's simple. We're providing an experience. We're providing a dream. We're providing the dream for the companies, for our customers.
But how do we partner? How do we as an industry go about persuading
to sit together, to listen together, to discuss together, to create together, to listen what the people have to say, to listen what our customers. We forget, because as I mentioned before, we always create something brand new. Take donuts. You mentioned the donuts award before. Okay. Sometimes you can create the most fancy donut.
Cronuts.
Exactly. But sometimes, and most of the time, the best donut is the most simple one. It's the little one. Maybe some jam, something like that. You don't need to be too fancy and all that. You have to keep it simple.
But how do we?
But at the end of the day, it's a question for experience.
But how do we get this across to mobile operators? Because mobile, at the end, I used to train in messaging, and I would stand up for this. And the revenues of a mobile operator, I am the mobile operator revenues. And on a very good day, and from research from Mobile Square, very clear with this, it's the range from the large mobile operator groups globally between about 0.6% to 2.5% for their business messaging, their A2P messaging in terms of revenue. So with me, that's the sole on the very thin sole on my shoe. That's the percentage. That's the business messaging revenue. How do we get it across that actually it is worth the time of these mobile operators to take on business messaging? Because they've got the brands, which no one has heard about their media on the street. No one has heard of telemedia. No one has heard of Comviva, unless you just happen to be in the city where you happen to have a rather large office. The same goes for Route Mobile.
James, can I ask a question?
Go on.
The 2.5% that you just described,
Yeah.
what year were you are you referring to? Because it has changed now.
No, this is the latest research.
Okay, because it is changing.
That's a percentage of total revenue for the mobile operator group.
Okay, can I just, because that thing is changing for the operators, the revenues that are going to be coming from, let's call it digital advertising or A2P or businesses, they have a big ambition. There's big ambitions out there that they will be a substantial player in that digital advertising ecosystem, and it might still be that 2.5%, but it is growing, and there's this.
That's a good day. It's actually more like 1 or less. Yeah.
I'm with you 100%, but it is growing. This industry would not exist if there hasn't been also a shift in the mindsets of operators. The way the operators are interacting in that space today versus 10 years ago is completely day and night.
I was going to come exactly to you, because your platforms, you were 100% providing SMSCs, network infrastructure to mobile operators globally for the P2P. And then you realized a number of years ago, obviously, there's a massive A2P opportunity. And I know Comviva and likewise Route Mobile, and so many in this room as well spent lots of time educating. So how have you gone about that change?
So
Sam,
I don't know.
I've got to go. I know you're getting excited, but I've got to go to Desh.
That's what you
We've,
want.
we've only got 30 minutes. And we're nearly out of time.
okay, so you have something.
Just one phrase. You asked me a question before. I would say include our partners in the same growth chain. Simple as that. You mentioned about mobile operators is to discuss with them, because we are the boots on the ground. We are the people discussing with the companies and the customers at the end. The mobile operators are sometimes, and I'm sorry for that, obviously we need them, but we have to include them together in the same growth, in the same discussion, in the same way, education, both sides, because we are dealing with the customers at the end of the day.
Desh.
Yeah, so I think this is as a topic very dear to Comviva as a company and me, because primarily our GTM is also working with the telecom operators and enabling them to offer directly services to the enterprises, right? So we've been at it for last 5 years, and what we see is a clear shift in last 2 years, where most telecom operators want to call themselves as a tech co rather than a telco. That is one theme, and in that they want to be seen as a digital brand in the country beyond only offering the connectivity services. So most telecom operators have specific departments which are working on this. And when you talk about 1% or 2% of the overall revenue, which is not significant at the CEO level, but the strategy, if you look at it from a B2C, B2B, wholesale, all the three verticals, B2C is declining, wholesale is steady, B2B is where the progress or the growth can come in. And that is where we see, messaging is one element. So when somebody who is looking at this as a strategy, messaging is a good starting point for them. But then they're looking at it as an enterprise marketplace, right? And Etisalat, for example, they rebranded themselves in UAE from being Etisalat to E&D Enterprise, where now they have different startups created within the E&D Enterprise umbrella, where every department is focused on a particular stream of business, whether it is healthcare, etc. So that's how the business is starting. And then for that business head, it is, let's say if it is overall $1 billion company and it's a $30 million business, it might be less than 1%, 2%, but that $30 million business for that executive is a startup within that conglomerate, right? So that's how the telcos are looking at it. And we see working with so many telcos where we have enabled this business, it's huge growth opportunity. Yeah.
John, so I know you spend a lot of your personal time talking to the CXO level of mobile operators. Do they understand the opportunity, potential they have with their brand?
I think it goes back down to follow the money. And I think the reason our industry is as successful, as vibrant as it is today, isn't, with all due respect, isn't because of the telcos. It's because you had the over-the-top players coming in from a consumer centricity. The Googles, the Facebooks, the Apples, the Microsofts, and they are better at marketing to the consumer than the telcos.
Can I ask you, you said about success, but I was at a panel yesterday talking about voice. Voice is worth today, say, $240 billion, but A to P, depending on whose stats or whatever, is barely a quarter or a fifth of that on a supremely good year, depending on whose stats you're looking at. So actually, are we really doing that well? Given it's so small, given voice,
it's one platform, voice. And again, if we're talking omni-channel, we're talking voice, we're talking SMS, we're talking WhatsApp, we're talking email. I think it comes down to the last presentation. If we anchor our decision making in what's right for the consumer, we will transcend some of those trends. And you're right, the platform of choice today is fashionable, it's fickle. And we as consumers, I remember BlackBerry messaging. Where's that?
I loved it. Yeah.
I've been in the industry long enough to think, I remember when Nokia and Ericsson were number one and number two in the mobile phone world. So, and people come in and disrupt. And I think if the telcos don't wake up and say, hang on, we've got this massive asset, we're being hit by governments for 5G license. If we don't monetize it, somebody else will. And we are left with, we put all the investment in, we've got all the regulatory concerns, but the people who make the money are the people who actually serve the customers over that. And I think it's ever the case, if you don't anchor your decision-making, both financial, marketing, operationally, in what does the consumer, not the customer, what does the consumer of this information want, and serve them, we will end up with many more Nokias in the world many more Motorola's in the world, many more Lucents in the world, because our view of mobile today and messaging is a snapshot, but it's a snapshot on a continuum. If we don't continually evolve, if we don't cannibalize some of that SMS revenue for new revenues of identification or commerce or whatever, we will be written in history. And I think everyone's got the opportunity to be part of the future, but if you're not investing, developing, and anchoring your decision-making in what the consumer wants, I think we're going to be, the youngest dinosaurs in the lot.
And there we have it. This is the end of the panel. We're going to have some opening up for questions. Anybody got any questions in the room? No. I think we've done it. Oh, we have. We have one question at the back. David from Google.
Yeah, David Fernandez from Google. This question is for Kerstin on your small and medium business approach with carriers beyond the idea to work with the carriers enterprise sales force. I mean, how are you seeing the business model when it comes to the enterprises, particularly when you've been discussing that WhatsApp, for example, is free? So how a small and medium business, they see an opportunity to work with a carrier paying for something that they can get for free with WhatsApp?
So first of all, the business model is going to be a subscription model where the small business signs up, very, very small monthly amount, and gets a number of services, messages, rich messages, omni-channel, also creative templates. So really a toolkit with which you can grow your business. And that is to be proven, but our ambition is by factor 10x in terms of revenues. Now, subscription model is what we are going to do. We're not gonna, there will be an option of pay as you go, but that will be less beneficial for the user, for the SMB. To the point that we all were making, it's about keeping it very, very simple for them to launch a really a campaign with a great experience for the end consumer to fill up their shop in 7 minutes.
Anything else? No? Anything online?
What does that answer your question, David? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'd like to thank the panel, Kerstin, Sam, Desh, and John. John's last point was very, very salient and very, very true. MMS was mentioned yesterday. MMS is making a resurgence as well. And I think all this talk, constant talk we had for so many years, MMS will replace SMS. And then RCS will replace SMS. No, it won't. No, it won't. No, it won't. No, it won't. Whatever the channel is, they will all coexist. They will all move, ebb and flow. And if a company just simply ties their flag to one, it's very clear they will not be around in the next 10 or 20 years at all. You've got to move and have this offering. And this is exactly what omnichannel is about. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.